I was gonna start this video out with a basic history lesson on Doom and how influential it is and whatever else, but I'd be wasting your time because everyone's already heard that story 1,000 times over. Today, I wanted to share a bit of Doom history that usually gets overshadowed by other things. A section of its modding scene that is dedicated to bringing you the best custom maps and experiences that they can offer. But there's a catch. They're not exactly your standard type of experience. Today, we'll be going over some examples of troll wads and their father, Terry. A WAD is a type of file format that contains game data for the Doom engine, acting as a storage location or a container file, meaning where's all the data. When somebody creates a new modification for Doom, like say a new set of levels or maybe some new creatures to shoot at, they pack the data into a WAD file so they can easily share their creation with the world, while simultaneously making the mod simple to install. The files could range in size, being as small as a few megabytes and even as large as a few hundred in some extreme cases. People were and still are incredibly passionate about what they can do with the game, and they're able to constantly create new experiences for each other to enjoy. Now allow me to paint a pretty vivid picture for you. You just got off work. It's been a hectic day and you just want to unwind. You take a nice shower, get all squeaky clean, take a heavy dump, and maybe make yourself some dinner. You'd like a home-cooked meal, but banquet Salisbury steak will have to do. After waiting for your microwave to zap your meat slurry patties into a piping hot mess, you carefully lift the tray out of the microwave and shuffle over to your bedroom. Move some clutter off your desk, pull up Doom World, and look for some new levels to play in your favorite video game. You see a level pack containing 8 new missions that promises to be exciting with lots of new assets, basically a whole new game, for free. After the day you've had, this sounds like a great time. You then proceed to download the file, wait a bit for the hefty data to be retrieved successfully, and load the mod into your game. You start a new campaign, select Ultra Violence as your difficulty. You crack open your Monster Ultra Zero and take a loud sip. It's time. You see a large metal door in front of you. You open it, and you're greeted with this. This would probably ruin your whole evening. I've had it happen to me, and I'll be frank with you. I had a huge meltdown and put about 7 different holes in my walls, which I would say is more than reasonable. But this is what the Doom community refers to as a troll wad, more specifically a Terry trap. The name comes from its creator, Terry. No, not that Terry. These traps tend to lure players in with fraudulent claims of exciting gameplay, new levels, new weapons, new monsters, just about anything. A mod that sounds way too complex and amazing than what could ever be realistically offered, which results in the player having their eyes and ears violated by a digital abortion, so to speak. In order to create a proper Terry trap, several components are required to complete the experience. 1. You're going to need obviously tiled textures and images that are used specifically to disorient the player. The image on your screen now is a common texture used, called Some Mong. It's an image of Brad Carney, the creator of Skulltag, a multiplayer source port for Doom, that has been tinted red. The image is actually stored within the files of the aforementioned source port. His image is usually tiled on walls and floors, and sometimes even as a new enemy with ridiculously high health. 2. Flashing lights have to be abundant. If you aren't causing the player to have an intense seizure, then you aren't doing it right. This is normally achieved by placing teleporters within each other and using a level script to move the player into one of them. This results in the player being teleported around the map at Mach speed and usually jibbed. Flashing lights are also achieved with animated wall textures and text strings on the screen. And that leads me to my next point. 3. You're going to need some vulgar text strings. Every trap needs to threaten to do weird things to your poop chute while it's tearing your player character to shreds. Hell, throw in a few dozen more threats or perhaps promises of mutilation and general bullfuckery and you've got yourself an eloquently worded eyesore. And 4. Lastly, you need to blow out the eardrums of the player. There are many routes for this, usually just spamming existing game sounds does the trick, but some creators go the extra mile and add new sound effects like screaming, bass-boosted moaning, radio static, all those lovely sounds that make your ears leak the funny red fluid. But there is an optional addition. You can create bogus lumps within the WAD that intentionally take up more storage space than is actually required. This actually led to most of these types of WADs getting removed from mod hosting services due to their massive file size and the fact that they were considered a nuisance to players. Some troll WADs would return with the bloat removed and usually were moved to their own category. Speaking of storage, there's another type of troll WAD that uses a similar storage-hungry strategy for annoying people: zip bombs. 2 types were used to screw around with players. The first was a traditional zip bomb, where files are overlapped within a container archive, where a cluster of data is highly compressed in multiple files or locations without the need to create any duplicates. This means that a zip can be under a megabyte, but once you attempt to extract anything from the archive, the computer is overloaded due to the massive file size of the contents upon export. Some methods could even fill your drives with an assload of zeros to essentially fill your storage with nothing. But the second method was far simpler, where large chunks of text that were massive in size are then crunched down via file compression algorithms that make them significantly smaller due to how little space that text and string banks actually take up. When the WAD is exported from the container, the file size is exponentially bigger. This usually didn't cause any major issues, as WADs would usually expand to a few gigs at most, but there were instances where techniques similar to the first method were used. The last notable bit of information on this bygone phenomenon is centered around one last prolific troll, Doom Guy 2000. DG is pretty well known in the Doom modding scene for his painstakingly put together mods. For example, DG took it upon himself to create the longest level pack for Doom 2 that has ever been made. It was built from scratch, right from the ground up, in just 3 months. He used a variety of different tools like Doom Builder, Slade, and XWE. This wasn't just some piss-in-the-wind WAD with no inspiration, because DG credited many people in the mod's description. The list goes as follows: Barack Obama, Sting, Ace Team, JC Dizon, Paul Corfiadis, Gallant Don, Lady Gaga, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Pearl Jam, Tool, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Randy, and Mandy. What exactly their contributions or inspiration was is beyond me, but I'm sure they all had a hand in the project. The mod did include around 100 different MIDI tracks, so maybe some of these guys contributed on that front. Anyway, despite the big roster of names and even larger list of levels, it turns out this mod was a lot more simplistic than what players were hoping for. There are most definitely 30,000 levels, but they're all the same thing. You spawn into an area, there's a switch, you flip it, the level ends. 30,000 times over. Personally, I think it's a technical achievement and a wonderful way to spend an evening or two. The non-existent story gripped me from the very beginning. He also did make a sequel to this pack, where it features 100,000 levels and 200 MIDI tracks, a true technical marvel that shouldn't go unappreciated. But maybe this isn't the best example of his prowess. I mean, come on, everyone deserves a second chance. He did try his hand at a gameplay modifier, and I think he did a damn good job. Doom can be a tricky game to master, but once you figure out how to deal with every monster and navigate every level, sometimes you need a bit of a quality of life tweak. You know, something to freshen up the experience. This gameplay modifier, that was made in about an hour, just duplicates the spawned enemies by 100. Even if you've already figured out how to control a room of Hellspawn, you're probably still not ready to take on 100 times the amount. You'd easily be overwhelmed and turned into red slop for the pinkies to swallow up. Players were, yet again, not entirely thrilled about this joke mod, as they felt it was shitting up the Doom World archives, but I have to disagree again. This mod may not be for everyone, but it did exactly what it was advertised to do. It managed to raise the count of active monsters. Doom Guy 2000 is obviously a misunderstood artist. Needless to say, he made plenty more mods that were hated by most but loved by people who understood the joke. They're mods for video games and they really shouldn't be taken that seriously. Though he did make a mod that just made the game flash colors at you, marketed as Seizure Doom, but people know what they're getting into before they even try it. Can't get mad about that. All in all, while this is just a small subsection of a larger community of avid gamers and degenerate boomer shooter lovers, I think this cluster of the Doom fandom is worth noting. It showcases a desire that we all feel from time to time, a need to do a little trolling in hopes of rustling the jimmies of some heavy-breathing neckbeard in his mother's basement. These people put their knowledge and know-how into these projects, even if they were just to mess with people, that would leave an eternal mark on a franchise that is still going strong to this very day. In my opinion, it's oddly endearing to see the hoops that people will jump through just to have a laugh. You gotta appreciate the little things. But that's gonna be it for today's video. If you like what I do, leave a comment, rate, and subscribe. If you want to support me in a more personal way, you can check out the Patreon link and the Teespring link in the description. I've got more content coming down the pipeline. But until then, I'll see you degenerates next time.